Hi guys, this is Master Coach Tony Morgan, and today's video is a continuation of the Ideal Independent C24. So we're going to carry on our series of questions and answers, and you're going to hear my student asking me questions and I'll give the answers to his questions. So hopefully you'll learn a different perspective in boiler repair and pick up some tips, and hopefully that will help you in your journey and becoming a masterful engineer. So Tom, we're going to carry on your questions. So we're going to be looking at the central heating side of things. So you got a few questions you want to ask me, so fire away. Let's see what we can come up with.
Right, Tony, regarding the central heating side, I know that we just covered the hot water side, and obviously there could be a few different scenarios with central heating. So first question would be, the room thermostat will be the first place to look if you have no central heating, is that correct? Because that's the first sequence of firing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're going to step back from that. You're going to actually look at your timer. So your timer, that's where the power comes from first. That then sends power to the room thermostat and then comes back to the boiler to start the pump. So the pump will start first. So basically, if you don't hear no pump activation, the pump's dead, then I'll be looking at external controls first, which, as I said, your timer and your room thermostat. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, you got any more questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I mean, obviously another scenario would be possibly your diverter valve or the actuator. Is that the same sort of scenarios with the hot water side? Obviously it's going to stick in, like maybe it's the hot water side, and that's why it's not getting central heating. Is there any other things that it could be?
Well, as I said, once the pump starts, then your burner is going to come on. So once you know your burner is fired up and that's getting hot, the flow. So let's look at the flow pipe there at the back. So you're going to feel if that's hot. Then you're going to feel if your flow pipe coming out your boiler is hot. Now, suppose it's not. So the flow pipe is cold, the burners come on, the blue lights come on. So I'm going to be then thinking, it's not diverting down to the radiators. So it's probably be going across to the plate, basically circulating around the boiler. So that means the diverter valve is stuck, or the cartridge is stuck. The actuator is not moved over for the heating. So that's an area to look at, which, as I said, will cause no central heating. Anything else?
Yeah, another scenario here is, how would you know if it was the primary sensor that was causing like no central heating issues?
Well, on this particular boiler, we got two sensors, as I said here, and they work in tandem. Now, to go to say that type of situation, as I said, if the burner's coming on or not, that's what you got to kind of look at. So if the burner isn't coming on, so you're going to have to backtrack why the burner's not coming on. So is the fan running? So you've got to look at that. If the fan is running, but yet there's no burner coming on, you got to look at these areas. Is it sparking? Is it doing all of this? If it's not sparking, something's stopping it from sparking. So is any power going to the spark generator? No, there's not. It's not necessarily the board, but the power comes from the board. So you could say, let me check these thermistors. Check the resistance reading, and do the same. If one's way out from the other, that could cause it, because this could stop it from firing, these sensors. You might think it's a board, as I said, because of no power going up to the spark generator, because these might be up to temperature, so they're not going to start the ignition sequence when it's up to temperature. But if it's a false temperature, that will give you the same situation as if it was up to temperature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so am I right in thinking then that the primary sensors come in the line of sequence before the ignition sequence, where you're talking spark generator, electrode, and then boiler fires up. So if for example it's not even sparking, then you're looking back the way, and that's where you probably look at the sensors as a main reason for this happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So rather than thinking, oh, it's a board fault because no power is at the spark generator, then let's look at these two, because that's going to basically, they need to be calling first to start the ignition sequence. Yeah.
So talking about a board fault then, Tony, would you be able to diagnose that as in there's nothing firing at all then? There's not even the pump doesn't start? Or how can you diagnose the board fault?
Well, if that's basically, as I said, the pump's dead enough in activation, so it's going back to the beginning of what we said about the room thermostat and the timer. Well, if them two things are proven, they think, well, they're fine, they're working okay, but there's still no pump activation, there's no power at the pump, it's all dead. You can then look at your supply coming in here. This is your external wiring.
Yeah.
So if you look here, that link there, that's like your room step, that would be. So you're going to prove to see if power's going out and coming back into the board. If it is, and it's all dead, then you check your thermistors, they are at the correct values, so they're okay, no problem with them. Then you will be looking at a board fault. I've seen that before, when it's totally dead, nothing happening.
So this particular boiler, it doesn't come up as like a board fault, like for example in Valent or back season, that's actually leading you straight to it. So you've got to really get your multimeter out with these type boilers, then rather depending on the error faults on the boiler display.
Well, on error codes, some of them do give you an indication that is a board fault, but on some board faults there is no indication and it's still a board fault. So you got to use use this type of information, what you're listening to now, to give you that kind of more advanced information. So error codes can give you a lot of information, but there's times where the error codes fail to give you the answer and it is a board fault. So when it's dead, no display, there you sort of indicators where it is a board fault despite no error code being presented. Just incidentally, I want to mention about the display, loss of display if the power was there. There's two PCBs in here, so you've got the main board basically, and you've got the display PCB. So the display PCB runs along here like a strip, and it's connected to these, and obviously it displays through here. So what you have to do first is, as I said, check the power. If it's there, this could have failed. Now it's hard to determine which one it is, so you can go for this option first, replace that. If it displays, then fine, but if it doesn't, obviously it is the main board. So these two boards, so just letting you know about that.
Okay. Another thing is the pump itself, the circulating pump, even though it's getting power, is there still a way that the boiler might not fire up because of another reason?
So you're saying that the central heat pump,
it's got power, but would it be through a circulation problem, for example, that it still might not fire up, or would it fire up temporarily and shut down again?
Right, well, what we said on the previous video about the pump performance, we'll just do the same thing again, because you could have a weak pump, so if the pump might not be strong enough to pump around the system, so you might get some sort of heating, lukewarm, but as I said, if the pump performance is weak, then you're not going to get it pump around the system. The boiler could get hot quick, then shut down because it can't get rid of the heat quick enough. So,
right, okay. Is there anything else? I mean, I'm looking at possibly the potentiometer like selector switch. I mean, is that something else that can cause
yeah, absolutely.
shutdowns?
Well, you can get, say like, this is the selector switch here. No, sorry, it's this one. The knob's missing. Now, if the shaft's broken, so it's actually in the wrong position. So, say for instance, you've got it on heating and hot water, which is here, but the shaft's broken and it's only set on hot water only, then you're not going to get no heating because the heating's actually switched off, but unknown to you, the shaft's broken.
Right, okay.
So that's a kind of situation where basically the pump's going to be kind of not operating because it's been switched off.
Right, okay.
Even actually what was said about the PCB, going back to that, you're going to get all this situation. Oh, tested it here, that's okay. Pump's not operating. But you wouldn't be blank. It wouldn't be blank, you know, like we said earlier. You would have on the status like 0. So what you can tell by that, actually, that's a good thing. The status tells you that if it's on 0 and you think it's supposed to be on heating, it means there's no demand. So your timer's on, room start, we've done the checks. So let's just check here to see if it's actually engaged and it's actually on heating.
Okay.
So.
Right, I think that's pretty much questions on the essentially.
Yep, okay, so covered, as we said, our questions and answers on the central heating faults. Hopefully that was educational for you guys. So that's going to be the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.